Many people brought a false report that somehow critical race theory had infiltrated, taken over the Southern Baptist Convention, or been significantly influential in Southern Baptist Convention. All kinds of people have heard this, and then someone said, "Oh, it's taking place in Southern Baptist leaders too. Let's," and it's not. It's a false report. Critical race theory really is a thing, but it's not impacting conservative evangelical denominations like Southern Baptist.
We promised you that we would be setting a table, being challenging one another, provoking one another to good deeds. Would you take just a second and thank Dahadi and Michelle for...
There's so much that we're going to unpack this morning, specifically from our next two speakers, Michelle Sanchez and Dahadi Lewis.
So when I was asked by our illustrious conference organizers, hey, what have you been thinking about with regard to evangelism these days? Post-COVID, post-George Floyd. An answer slowly began to form in my mind. What I have been thinking about is critical evangelism theory. Okay, so now here's how I would describe that theory. When we pursue diversity and dismantle racism in the name of Jesus Christ, we can inspire a spirit-empowered disciple-making movement. Now, please, I know this theory is new and interesting. We've been awakening to the reality that it's no longer enough to be not racist. By the way, it's also why I have personally found the word anti-racist to be helpful. It's become increasingly prominent. What is systemic racism? What do we mean by that? It's what we call it when a system's policies and practices consistently result in unequal outcomes. And I believe that we can see critical evangelism theory at work in the book of Acts. In those days when the number of disciples was increasing, the Hellenistic Jews among them complained against the Hebraic Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. What we actually see here is one of the earliest depictions of systemic racism at work in the church. At the beginning of the passage, we see the church growing. The number of disciples is increasing. But then there's ethnic tension. The early church was full of the Spirit and led by godly leaders. They had developed a lovely church and a lovely program. They had still overlooked something. The impact of their well-intentioned program was inequity. Inequity between the Hellenistic Jews and the Hebraic Jews. Notice this too, that they probably would not have even noticed that there was inequity if the Hellenistic Jews didn't complain. So thankfully, they took action. They took action to dismantle the racism in their community. If you look at the people that were raised up to solve the problem, it was actually men from the marginalized group. But we're talking about critical evangelism theory. When we both pursue diversity and dismantle racism in the name of Jesus Christ, we can inspire a spirit-empowered disciple-making movement. It is precisely what I see here in the book of Acts. We have the blueprint. We just need to follow it. But now you might find yourself thinking, okay, that's great, Michelle, but I signed up for an evangelism conference. I didn't sign up for the multi-ethnic race conference.